about this? 28 girls hospitalized after playing with Ouija boards at their school in Colombia.
Yeah, you remember it. The girls had signs of an anxiety attack. The school's apparently waiting for a diagnosis before providing further information here. But it is worth noting that one mom said her kids always have a good breakfast and the fainting was not due to a lack of food. This isn't the first time this has happened in a Colombian school. Back in November, 11 teenagers collapsed after using a Ouija board at another school in Colombia. It was later reported that at least 5 of them had suffered from food poisoning.
Maybe just don't use Ouija boards.
I agree with that. That's what I vote for.
Those things do creep me out. The ghost and all that paranormal stuff.
Used one though?
I used to mess around like back in like 8th grade school or something with some buddies, but they're hokey. But I don't know any supernatural stuff. If it is true, I don't ever want to see a ghost or anything like that because I'll be ruined for life.
To Iran, where authorities are investigating what the Iranian government is calling potentially deliberate poisoning of hundreds of schoolgirls. According to senior officials, the girls from schools across the country have been suffering respiratory, cardiac, and neurological symptoms. Iranian media is reporting that the poisonings have been taking place for months.
Hundreds of girls across the country have fallen victim to suspected poison attacks. The alleged poisonings started in November last year in the Shiite holy city of Qom. Reports suggest over 60 schools across 21 of the country's 30 provinces have seen suspected cases. Over 1,000 children have been affected so far, over 1,000 of them. That the alleged poisoning cases might actually be psychogenic in nature, highlighting the fact that almost all sufferers have recovered quickly. The report says that the news of these poisoning cases should be taken with a pinch of salt. The report says there are startling similarities between the cases in Iran and previous incidents reported from Afghanistan and the West Bank. In all these cases, female students in Islamic schools in different time periods exhibited symptoms like headaches, nausea, abdominal pain, and blurred vision. According to the Psychology Today report, the girls in all 3 cases were suffering from a mass psychogenic illness. The report says it follows a pattern, a mass illness, media frenzy, and accusations of state terrorism.
And I'm, playing with the devil.
Of course I did. Anyways, according to the story, nearly 30 schoolgirls in Colombia wanted all the smoke. 28 schoolgirls were hospitalized with anxiety attacks after allegedly playing with Ouija boards at school. Now, according to various reports, the girls suffered from fainting, anxiety, and other symptoms after playing the board game, and they were admitted to a hospital accompanied by parents and school faculty. Info on their diagnosis has not been released. So we all put our hands on the Ouija board and we ask it questions, and it would start moving. And I'm like, "Are you moving it?" And she's like, "No, are you moving it?" And it would spell things. We would ask it questions, and it did move. One time I was playing the game. I got addicted to it. I'm not gonna lie. I left it alone. My phone rang downstairs. My mom said, "Claudia, you got a phone call." I go, wait. I'm going to test it to see if it's real. I said, "Who's on the phone call?"
News updates, some very important information coming out of Springville, California. Life-threatening flash flood emergency has been declared with evacuation order. Now, a flash flood emergency has been declared early today and still continuing for Springville and Porterville, California, as they are calling this a catastrophic life-threatening situation as snow-covered mountains are rapidly melting from heavy downpours causing extreme flooding with reports of multiple homes and roadways being washed away. Multiple people have been evacuated. More than 10,000 people are being evacuated, guys. Before I start, give this video a big.
We are now in a period of structural inflation that will last for decades. They said that the free market is over and industry now sets policy. And they said that this year, 2023, is year 1 of this new global order. Days later, the Federal Reserve Bank announces a July launch for their new FedNow service, which was first announced in October of 2021. The too big to fail banks and all the large processors are already on board, and so is the U.S. Treasury. The first week of April, the Federal Reserve begins the FedNow pilot program for early adopters to become certified participants to help the Fed confirm readiness for their July launch. FedNow is an instant payment processing system that seeks to be the base of all digital transactions, acting as an umbrella company to manage all financial payments. This has been shown to be the gateway to a central bank digital currency, CBDC. FedNow is much like the Reserve Bank of India's instant payment system, the Unified Payments Interface, or UPI. UPI has had huge success in converting rural communities into a complete cashless society. According to the International Monetary Fund, UPI democratized the payment system and paved the way for central bank digital currencies. Central bank instant payment processing is also how the Central Bank of Nigeria introduced its CBDC, Naira, which has been, so far, violently rejected.
You just can't believe how much this is not on people's radar. Not someone like you can't believe that at all because it's on your radar all the time. That's not, you live in a world that's on the cutting edge of this sort of thing. It's like people have no idea. It's like, well, why not have a digital passport? I mean, you know, how convenient. It's like, fair enough, and you can understand that. Wouldn't it be nice if we could pay for everything with our phones? It's like, wouldn't it be nice if the central government, who's woke-oriented and makes carbon dioxide remediation the priority, knows exactly what you spend on everything so they can target you tax-wise with precision? It's like, oh, didn't think about that. It's like, yeah, you sure didn't. And oh yes, it's highly probable it'll be a miracle if we escape from that. You can see these signs of this everywhere. You know, when you go through airports now, there's a lot of automated barriers. You show your passport. It's like, well, these are automated barriers. What if you can't go through them? Well, that's the situation for many people in China. It's like, what are you going to do? You're going to argue with the machine? Like, you just cannot imagine how screwed you are. It's way worse than anything Kafka ever imagined, because at least with Kafka, those bureaucrats, faceless though they may have been, they were at least still human. Once the machines can lock you out, you are in such trouble. And we're speeding towards that.
We think that there are four characteristics of, if we were to pursue a CBDC, it would at a minimum have the following four characteristics. First is intermediated. Second is privacy protected. The third is identity verified. So it would not be anonymous. It would not be an anonymous bearer instrument. And fourth is transferable or interoperable.
The BIS General Manager Augustine Carstens in October 2020 explaining that with CBDC they will have central control to set the rules and enforce them centrally.
Our analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash, and there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that.
COVID makes it accelerates the process of digitalization and automatization. It legitimizes the deployment of mass surveillance, and it makes surveillance go under your skin.
The nature of the CBDC, what is it actually going to look like? They never talk about that. But I had one European central banker tell me what it's going to look like, and it was around this large and would be implanted under your skin.
We're broke, you know. When I came out of the military, we were at about 30% debt to GDP. So we could have, that's like you could make $100,000, but you paid $30,000 to the bank. Today, it's 140% debt to GDP. That means you're making $100,000, but you owe $140,000 every month. America's broke, and the baby boomers are still living in that time when we were 30% debt to GDP. So it's not the same world anymore. They've been lied to, but they're not even aware they're being lied to, and they think the Bitcoin guys are crazy. Or anything new that shakes our 401k, dreamland, their fantasy land there. If Bitcoin, you guys keep pissing people off, and we go to Fedcoin, you know what's going to happen? Hyperinflation. Because they're going to give money, it's complete communism at that point. They're going to give money directly to the people via UBI, Universal Basic Income, MMT. It's called welfare, it's also called Social Security, it's also called Medicare. But they're going to, if they go to Fedcoin, like China's going to the China coin, if they go to that, that's why you're going to wish you had some Bitcoin, gold, silver, and bullets, because there will be civil unrest. They're going to steal our wealth, but they're going to pump the money directly into the people. And that's what they did during the Weimar Republic, which brought rise to Adolf Hitler. And Kamala and Adolf have the same values. It's reparations.
Now we're talking about this digital dollar, and it's starting to pop up. And so, the problem that we have is inflation, right? So the Federal Reserve prints, they just popped out 1.9 trillion, and already today they're talking about another 3 to 4 trillion. Like, where does that money come from? And what most people don't realize is that every time they print another dollar, the dollar in your bank is worth less. And so they're stealing the value from your dollars. And so you don't have any control over that. And even worse than that, when they print those dollars, they're stealing your value. They give them to their buddies. The people closest to the money supply get the benefits, called the Cantillon effect. And so it's a completely unfair system. They're stealing your labor. They're stealing your energy, kind of enslaving you with that. And so going to a digital dollar, a central bank digital currency, is the same system, but even worse. So it still gives them all the same benefits of creating as much money as they want, enriching their buddies and themselves while stealing your value. But on top of that, it's a digital money, so it's a couple things that are kind of scary. And it's one, it's programmable. So when they gave out the stimulus last year, the goal was to stimulate the economy. They're hoping people would go spend that money in the economy. Most people didn't. They saved it, right? Which is exactly what they didn't want to happen. So, and then some people put it into Robinhood and started trading. Yeah, that's right. And so they can program the money. So they can say, hey, you get the money till Friday. If you don't spend the money by Friday, it comes back to us. And by the way, you can only spend it here, 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 but you can't spend it here, here, here. So they can program it. But it gets even scarier than that. It's also could be used behaviorally. So for example, Ken, you're saving way too much money. You're negative 5% interest on your money. Mark, you're not saving enough money. We're going to give you positive 5% interest rate. Oh, you're this race, you're this sex, you're this identity, whatever. You get this treatment, you get this treatment. And so through the money, they can control behavior. And that's really where they want to go, which is pretty scary. So they want to be able to inflate it away. And it's almost like if you've seen these futuristic dystopian movies, we don't even have money anymore. Really what we have is the government gives us credits. Yeah, and that's exactly what's happening right now. They can use those credits how they see fit or take them away from us. The difference is when I put my money into Bitcoin, I control it. I have custody, and so nobody can steal it, seize it, and if I want to send it to you, nobody can stop it, block it, or prevent it. And I think it's going to, be a good thing for Bitcoin because there's a lot of skeptics on whatever digital money, even though today I think 80% of transactions are done digitally. There's a lot of skeptics on this digital money, and so I think it's going to make it mainstream. And then people are going to go, wait a minute, why does my US dollar, digital dollar, keep losing purchasing power, but this Bitcoin over here keeps gaining purchasing power? And I think it's going to be a big marketing piece for Bitcoin.
Once you understand how the Fed operates, so what happened, there's a third federal bank. It started in 1913. You know what else started in 1913? The IRS. So you put 2 and 2 together, and what do you spell? You're being screwed. And so one of the things I like about Bitcoin, it has something way of liquidity, or it claims it does. So it's not like real estate. When I buy a piece of real estate, it's illiquid. And so if I make a mistake, I can't get out of it. See, that's the trouble with real estate, that it's illiquid. Now this here is called paper. This is, how do you spell Zimbabwe? This is the US dollar. This is the future of the US dollar. It's a piece of paper. And millions of people are working for this. They're chasing Bitcoin, which is not a bad idea, but this is God's money. It's been here since planet Earth was started.
There's no doubt in my mind they're going to launch a digital dollar, right, or Fed coin. And what people need to understand is two things. One, it is no different than what the dollar is today. It's the same monetary policy, just in a new technology format. And all that means is now they have more controls than they had previously.
Right.
And the second thing is that if they launch a Fed coin, it is going to force everyone to get a digital wallet. And when they get everyone on digital wallets, more and more capital is going to flow to the soundest, hardest money. And so therefore, what is actually going to happen is when they launch FedCoin, they're going to think that it is going to be a response to Bitcoin as a decentralized digital currency, but it's actually going to accelerate the adoption of that digital decentralized currency. And I think they know that. I think that's why they're actually not being so aggressive with it. But what people are not ready for is a world where the federal government actually has more power than they have now over the monetary supply. So here's two ideas. The second thing is what happens when they start to personalize monetary policy. They say, Robert, you know what? You've got lots of assets. You've got great income. We're actually going to allow you to experience higher levels of inflation. But you know what? That person that is down the street, they're going to experience medium level of inflation.